Welcome back to Not Enough Projects. Today we are back on the 89 Lebaron Turbo GTC. Last time we got the top all nice, we got the new top on, it's looking good. This time we're going to be taking care of all the weird gremlins this car has, going through the vacuum system. We've got some shattered plastic vacuum lines, and we're also going to figure out what exactly is going on with the electrical. So let's not waste any time, let's get to work. Alright, I think we're going to start off by chasing down vacuum leaks / boost leaks, because I'm guessing that's where our problem with the dying when you clutch in is originating from. I do know I was playing around a little bit over here looking at where the vacuum lines are, and you can see one of these T's are broken, so that's a problem. We'll address that first, and then we will smoke test it and see if we can find any other major leaks. Oh boy, we just opened a can of worms. There's a vacuum line, one of those plastic vacuum lamps that snapped on there. We're gonna need some better access, I think. Whoops, that was not good. It's gonna be fun to fix. Alright, I made a little bit of progress. You can see. Alright, so after some fiddling around and looking at the vacuum diagram up here, kind of come to a point where we're getting ready to repair. So we have this set of lines coming off of the throttle body, and these connected over here with a T, except the port for this line has an orifice in it that restricts the flow. So I picked up a new orifice. Hopefully that'll work. So those T together and they go over to this line, which I believe goes over to the vapor canister. So that's that line squared away. And then these ones, I believe this, well, one of these, this one goes to the gauge inside. And then these go to the barometric solenoid, the purge solenoid, I believe, and the wastegate solenoid. And then also we have a line coming over here from the wastegate, which I believe this line goes to. So, I mean, I'll get a little squared away before I start doing everything, but I picked up, because all this stuff is brittle, and it's not really as brittle back here. You can see I can move this stuff around. Over in this section, it just instantly snaps. So I picked up some new 5/32 rubber hose, and, well, this is actually 7/32, and we'll need 5/32 rubber hose. And I also picked up 3/8 hose to replace all this stuff, which is rock hard. And then we can have this section of vacuum line squared away. Alright, I'm most of the way rebuilt. It's not the cleanest because you can see I had to do an adapter here, to the orifice here, to the T here, to this check valve. That's all the throttle body stuff that I was just talking about. And then that goes over to the vapor canister over here. And then we have the 4-to-1 manifold down here that I had to fix earlier, take all the broken bits out. That's all hooked up. Then we have this new 3/8 line that's going to go to the intake manifold. And then this just broke, so I'm going to have to get some line to fix it. We have the wastegate solenoid control that goes here to here. You see that's the vacuum line going down to the turbo over there. So we just need to hook that up, hook this up, put the PCV line back on, and then I think we're good to go. I did notice, and I don't think I did this, we have this line coming from the cruise control solenoid / the airbox over here. This line just flapping around in the breeze. It's kind of fitted like it's supposed to connect to something up there, but I don't really see any port, and it doesn't seem like it shows that on the vacuum diagram, so I'll need to figure that out. Yeah, it just says turbocharger to cruise control. which I was not able to find, so I'll need to do some digging on that. Then we can get that hooked up. We'll see if it's under vacuum while it's running. And if it is a big vacuum leak, obviously we will track that down, and then we'll see if the cruise control is working, and if it's not, that's probably why. Alright, I had to lengthen this hose just a little bit so I could keep it from kinking, because it was messing up the vacuum signal, so that's why it looks like garbage over here. I'll have to tidy it up and figure out routing. But I think everything's plugged in, so let's go ahead and just do a quick smoke test and see if there's any other vacuum leaks we need to be aware of. And if there aren't, then we'll go from there on tidying that up. Alright, so if you guys aren't familiar with smoke tests, it's pretty simple in principle. Basically, you're just pressurizing the intake of the engine with smoke, and because the smoke is pressurized, anywhere that there's a vacuum leak, it's going to run out of, so we'll see smoke coming out. Now, the real fancy machines have a flow meter on them, so that's another way you can tell if you have a vacuum leak. I've just got one that creates smoke. It doesn't have a flow meter on it. I highly recommend having one of these. If you guys do any kind of automotive troubleshooting on a regular basis, it's a really helpful tool. So I've got it plugged into the intake here with just this cone that shoves in. Let me show you the smoke first. I gotta hook up the air canister and then I'll show you. Alright, so here you can see the smoke coming out. So I'm just gonna shove it into the intake boot. And it should start pressurizing the system. Probably should have popped the air filter out, but that's okay. Alright, so let's test by popping the PCV off. There's nothing coming out. Oh, there's some smoke down there. Okay. Yeah, so we don't see any in here. But I see a lot over here. So let's go figure out what that's coming from. Looks like it's pretty low. Maybe it's the air hose. I think I'm gonna need to hop under. You know what? I think it's just leaking from the air box. Pretty sure. Okay, you know what? Let's try putting the smoke here. Just bypass the whole turbo. That way we're just looking at the engine vacuum leaks. And then after that we can try to focus more in on the boost system. Alright, we're hooked up over here. Looks like we've got a little bit of smoke coming out this 4-way connector. Not a whole lot I can do about that because it's just hard line shoved in there. Got some leaking in the throttle body. Kinda looks like the throttle shaft is leaking a little bit. Yeah, 'cause it's coming out in between the spring. Yeah, there's a fair amount of play there. Well, it's hard to say. Yeah, I feel some play, so not a whole lot I can do about that right now. You might be able to rebush those. You know, put new bushings in. Well, I mean, we've always had a little bit of leaking, but it's nothing like super crazy. And honestly, we can't do a lot about the leaks that we found here. So I still don't know where this goes, to be honest with you. It's not leaking. It's part of the cruise control circuit, so cruise control may not work currently. I don't really know, to be honest with you. We'll see. Well, you know, I'm seeing now it connects to the airbox. So maybe this is supposed to be under vacuum. I don't know. I can't find any kind of fitting for it, so yeah. Well, you guys want to go for a quick ride and see if we got any kind of improvement? I'll go ahead and close the hood and then I guess we can go off. Unfortunately, I just put the new top on, so can't lower the top, so it's going to be a little hot. Now it doesn't want to start. look under the hood real quick. Alright, well, I did have to disconnect the battery, so... Well, at least I did it accidentally. So I guess we'll see. Kind of a weird noise coming from down there. Something weird going on with the clutch. You guys can see all the garbage projects we got going on. Put the windows down. No check engine light. Mirror's delightful, isn't it? Brakes still work, that's a plus, I guess. Brakes are a little slow to return. Let's see if it dies. If I back down the driveway and then come back up and clutch in again. Shut it off, make sure it restarts. Yeah, alright. Man, it's a dog down low. See if the horn works now. Nope. No horn yet. What the heck? Look at that. It's working fine now. That is so strange. Got this thing working now. Oh look, we got 1 mile per gallon. That's awesome. That is so weird. I'm gonna have to do some thinking on that. Alright guys, so as it turns out, I believe this is not charging actually. It died on me. When I shut it off and tried to start it back up, the battery was dead. Luckily I was pulled in somewhere, so I was able to just charge up the battery and drive it back home. But you can see, this is a fully charged battery right off the charger. With the engine turned off, the voltage was about 13 volts. So you can see I started it up, voltage is down. I've got all the lights on, fan going on completely, and you can see it does not seem to be charging. Rev the engine and the voltage actually goes down, so that's not good. And with the engine running, no accessories, I did measure the voltage between the 2 field points right down there. Those small spade terminals, those are the field wire connection points. And the voltage between them with all the accessories off at idle should be around 3 volts. Ours, it jumps all over the place and it measures high. I can't really show it to you guys because I've only got 2 hands, but it jumps around, overload even over the 20 volt range. It jumps around, and when it is in range, it's at like 7 volts, so that's not ideal. So I'm thinking that it's not a voltage regulation problem, which is common on these because the voltage regulator on these is PCM controlled, and it's called the power module. Is external to the PCM, and that module fails pretty often. So a lot of guys will just throw one of your standard external voltage regulators on the alternator and that fixes it. This one is looking like a failed alternator to me just because of the field wiring, just because of the field winding voltages being so off. It makes sense. I mean, this sat forever, so the brushes are probably all gumped up. I think Rock Auto has some of these alternators for pretty cheap, so I'll probably just grab an alternator, we'll throw that in there. Hopefully that'll fix our charging issue, and possibly some of our other electrical issues are related to that, but we're going to go from the biggest problem, which is the charging system, and work our way from there. So I'm going to get that on order and then we'll get that in. Alright, for just a little bit more confirmation, I figured I'd do this. So how the field wires work is when there is full voltage applied to one terminal, that's the top terminal, and the other one is grounded, that's when the alternator is going to be fully engaged. It's going to be charging at the maximum amperage. So to test, you can ground the lower terminal. I already measured the top terminal. It gets battery voltage with the key on. So we're going to ground the bottom terminal. And if the alternator were working properly, even if the regulator were bad, we would get maximum voltage, which is something like, 17 volts or whatever the alternator is able to put out. And you can see here, we're getting absolutely nothing. So, just another confirmation that our alternator is in fact bad. Here's our shiny new alternator. Cheapest one off Rock Auto, I think, but I've actually had good luck with that kind of stuff from Rock Auto. It is a little bit different from our current one, but all of the mounting points and electrical connections look the same. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe all the Chrysler products from this era use the same alternator, just in different amperage configurations from the trucks to these cars. So I think it's going to do fine for us, even though it's a little bit of a different style. We'll see. So first we're going to remove this old one. We'll start with removing all the electrical connections, and then we're going to loosen all of the adjustment bolts and pivot bolts and loosen the belt. We'll just leave slack on it right down here and slide it out and get the new one on. We've got all the nuts for our electrical connections pulled off. Now the field nuts, 7mm. The hold down / possibly the ground connections, I don't know if that's what those are or if they're just hold downs. Those were 8mm, and then the positive battery connection was a 10mm. So there you go. Off that goes. Now we just need to pull off all the mounting hardware and release the belt. So we got the belt loose. Went ahead and removed the nut from this through bolt that mounts at the top of the alternator. Haven't removed the bolt yet, but also loosened the pivot bolt over here for the alternator. And then way down in there, that nut needs loosened up. And then finally you can loosen up the adjuster to the point that the belt starts getting loose. And we're just going to keep loosening that up so we can slip the belt off. And we'll pop all the mounting hardware off the alternator and it should come right out. Should mention that the main through bolt up here is a 9/16 or 14mm nut on this side, and a 9/16 or 14mm head bolt on that side that you need to hold with a wrench while you loosen the nut. This is 1/2 inch / 13mm. So is that lower pivot bolt, and the adjuster bolt is also the same. Now that we've got the belt off, we'll remove this lower alternator mounting bolt, and finally the upper through bolt, which they can get kind of stuck in there, so I'm going to grab something to whack on that a little bit, maybe pry against the alternator. So once you have the bolt pulled through, or whacked through, even if you can just get it flush to the surface, a lot of times what helps is while you're pulling on the back side of the bolt, up here on the head, wiggle the alternator up and down, and the bolt will come right out. Now the alternator's free, we got to kind of snake it up through here somewhere. Okay, I don't see a way to snake this alternator out without either moving the AC compressor or removing the discharge line off of it. This AC system is completely empty. I need to service it, so I'm going to pull that line off to make it easy on us. If your AC system works and if you're doing the same job, all you got to do is just loosen the belt tension off, take the mounting bolts off, and move this up and out of the way, and the alternator should slide right out. Alright, here's the old and new side by side. And here the old one has some bearing noise. New one, totally silent. So, that's good. See the mounting location and type look basically identical. Got these posts. All the electrical connections look correct. And our belt ribbing also looks correct. So we should be good fitment wise. We're gonna see if we need to move this spacer. Looks like it comes out fairly easy, so we can put the spacer in here if we want, which why not? We got it. So I'm just gonna pound that in just like we had on the old one, and we can drop this into place. Alright. Alright, we've got all the pivot points and mounting bolts just snugged, just enough so that they'll still turn but they'll hold it in place. Now we're going to tighten the adjuster bolt just until we get the tension that we need on the belt. Alright, we're snugged down to an appropriate amount of belt tension. Now we just need to tighten up all of our mounting bolts and then get the electricals back on. Well, we should be all buttoned up. Sorry about the noise in the background, but that wasn't too bad. Let's fire it up and see if we're charging. Alright, it fired up. We do have, you hear that noise. I think it's the alternator fan hitting the bracket right there. You can kind of see, hopefully. But we'll just leave that for now. It's self-clearancing, right? So let's grab the voltmeter and see how we're doing. Well, this is a good sign. We're at 14.5 volts. Let's rev her up a little bit and see how it changes. See, it increases, so that's a really good sign that the alternator was in fact the issue. Like, I mean, we tested it, so we were 99% sure. Same test we did last time. I've got the jumper wire on the K20 terminal, which is the lower one. We're gonna ground it and the engine should lug. And we'll also see the voltage increase, hopefully. Yep. You can hear it lug, so we now know the alternator is fully operational. Let's take it out for a drive and see if any of our mysterious weirdo issues have disappeared, or if those are all separate. Like the speedo coming and going. That was weird. Alright, seems to run well. It's charging. We're going to take her out for a quick rip and see how she does. Set you guys up. Well, that immediately did not work. Let's see if it dies. Nope. It did dip down a little bit, but it didn't quite die like it used to. Maybe that was just when it was at low battery voltage? I don't know, really. Oh man, I always forget how fun this thing is. Speedo still doesn't work, so we'll track that down, but I mean, beyond that, it seems to run pretty dang good. Man, so fun. Oh, it almost died there. Let's see if we can get it to do it again. Nope. Okay, well maybe we'll do, I gotta clean the windshield, but maybe we'll do a little bit more of an extensive drive on it. Battery voltage held constant. I mean, I'm pretty confident in the alternator. See, lights are on. Let's turn the fan on full blast. Turn our brights on. With all that stuff on, let's check our voltage and see how we're doing. Well, just sitting here at idle, it's at 14.8 volts. I don't trust this voltmeter, by the way. This is all kind of just relative measurement. This thing's a piece of junk I got for free, so I don't care about it. But let's try revving her up a little bit. See the voltage climb. That's a great sign. So I think we're good to go on the charging side of things. But next we're going to be tackling the speedo, which is kind of a weird intermittent issue. So let's get to diagnosing that. Well, I'm driving it down a bumpy road, and I was giving her the beans off a stop sign, and speedo's working now. It was kind of bouncing between working and not working before, like just a few minutes ago, but now it's on kind of solid. So we're gonna have to kind of track down. I'm guessing we're having a loose connection somewhere, or maybe a corroded connection. So this at least gives us something to work on. Hopefully it's either totally fixed right now, or it dies before I get back home, speedo that is, so that I can track it down easier. Intermittent issues are kind of a huge pain in the butt, but we'll see. Alright guys, so we're down here under the car. I don't know if I've ever even shown you guys under the car. It's pretty clean under here. There's some dentage on the oil pan there, which, if it's up into the pickup, that could be bad, but it's got good oil pressure all the time, so I'm not too worried about it. But it's clean under here. Zero rust, and I mean zero. Rustiest thing's this CV axle, which, that's not even rust. Anyways, we're under here because the car is still stalling when you clutch in to brake at a stop. And after a lot of research, it seems like it's actually due to the speedo, the lack of a speedo. Sounds kind of weird, and it was really weird to me at first. I could understand with an automatic transmission why inoperable speed sensor would cause issues like that, because obviously the speed, vehicle speed, is a big variable in the calculations for transmission shifting and, you know, torque converted lockup and all that. So I could see why an automatic transmission vehicle would have issues with stalling without a speed sensor. But the manual, that seems kind of weird. But I guess it's because the computer commands a high idle when you're coming to a stop, and then it lowers the idle after you're under like 7 miles an hour or something weird. I don't remember exactly, but all that to say, the speed sensor, there's a good chance it's causing our stalling issue. Now if we look here, immediately we see this zip tie, which is suspect in the speed sensor up there. Right there. It looks like the clip is broken off. Now the speedo is working intermittently, like over bumps and stuff, which is kind of weird. So I'm wondering if there's either corrosion in there or it's making poor contact because of the clip being broken. Let's see if I can, there you go, hopefully you can see that. So we're going to cut the zip tie, pop that connector off, and see what it looks like. We'll probably end up popping the speed sensor off, and you know, because we can't see the pins from down here. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you guys once I got it off. Alright, well I think it's safe to say we found the issue. Yep, that pin is all crusty. So we will deoxidize it and slap it back in there. It's too bad the wiring harness connector, the clip's broken off, but what are you going to do? We'll probably just do the same zip tie trick as whoever's on this last, and hopefully it'll last another 17 years. I don't know. So since it's kind of hard to get in here with anything mechanical to clean it, I'm going to try a chemical cleaning. So this is just some vinegar with salt dissolved in it. So we're just going to stick that down in there so that the contacts are under the level. And I'm just going to let it sit for, I don't know, like half hour or something like that. We'll come back and check it, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so it's been soaking in the vinegar salt solution for, I don't know, about an hour. Also went ahead and gave it some action with the blowgun, and you can see it's looking pretty good. Might still be a little bit of corrosion, so we're going to leave it soaking, but in the meantime we're going to go take a look at the wiring harness connector and see how the pins in there are looking. Yeah, we've got some corrosion in there. Maybe we'll soak it in that solution as well for a little bit and see how we come out. It's not that bad. I think it'd probably be fine if we just, you know, pushed it in and out a few times to scrape through, but we got it. Might as well do it. Alright, the connector's soaking. In the meantime, well, let's neutralize the rest of the vinegar that's on here. This is just baking soda and water. It's because if you leave it, it can actually lead to more rusting. I've experienced that, so always good to just do this. So we should be good there. We'll blow it out one more time, and this will be ready for when we put it back together. Alright, I think we got this thing good enough, so we'll neutralize it just like the other one and get the speed sensor back up and in. Alright, I went ahead and packed the speed sensor full of grease just to keep it watertight, prevent any future corrosion. So we're just going to drop this back down into place. We got our 10mm bolt-in washer, so we'll snug that up and get it plugged in, take her out for a rip. Alright, we're back together. Maybe what I'll do is just jack up the front end and we can have it spin the wheels in gear and see if the speedo works or not. Alright, here goes nothing. That's looking good. Yep, speedo's working. So let's take it out on a drive and see if the stalling issue is resolved. Alright, we're out here on the open road. Speedo's working. It's even accurate. I checked it with the GPS, and yeah, it's looking good. Been through a couple stop signs so far. It seems to actually hold its idle up higher now at about 1,000 RPM. We'll see if I can show you guys while we stop at this next stop sign. Pushing in to go into first. This is when it would normally die. You can see it's still hovering around 1,000 RPM. Oh yeah, and the old traveler display is working too, so that's always a bonus. It's even got an MPG meter, which I'm sure is pretty slick for the day. Speedo is a little funky. It's kind of bouncing around some. So there may still be some crap on the contacts, and I know it's a reed switch too, so one of the reeds may be stuck, something like that. Alright, we pretty much got all the mechanicals sorted out on this thing. The speed sensor is still a little weird. I think there's still corrosion on the pins, so I'll just get a new
speed sensor because of the corrosion. Once it's corroded, there's not a lot you can do to bring it back. I did make the mistake of rolling down the rear window and one of them failed, so we're probably gonna be figuring that out here soon, but it's drivable at least. All we need to do is throw in a new set of tires and then we should be good to just drive down the road. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching.